Hello, everyone. We are so excited to be with one of the amazing people here. And I am so excited that we are sitting down with Lina, and she's actually a superpower. And I have no idea, how to even, begin to tell how amazing she is. She is such a powerhouse. Every time she walks in the room, she just make sure that like she mind blown everyone with her presence, her insights, and we're so excited to have her, to sit down with her today and get her some of their insights about her journey. She's working in the RCMP, and we're excited to learn about her journey, her success stories, and some of the things that she's going to share with us today. So, Lina, thank you so much for being here today with us. It's such a pleasure to sit down with you and have a chat.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I appreciate the ability to reach a few more people, and especially to be able to share my perspective and empower other young women. I'm not as young as I used to be, but just to empower women in this space.
Absolutely. I love that. Lina, tell us more about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background. What happened that you joined RCMP, and tell us more about, your career history as well.
No, thank you. So I joined the RCMP in 1994, and I came from a very sort of more traditional family, and it was funny because some of my male cousins would say to me, "You can't be a police officer. You're too short. You're a girl. You're little." And if you know anything about me, if you want me to do something, tell me that I can't. And it only drove me to want it even more. I was very, very privileged. My parents were very supportive of my choices. Although now as a parent, I look at my 19 and 21-year-old and think, oh no, I'm so terrified. But I mean, my parents were so supportive that as a young woman, I could do what I wanted and to follow my heart to this journey. And so I trained really hard to be able to get up to the fitness levels and what I felt would have given me the strength to be able to do it. And I don't just mean physical strength. I also mean that sort of emotional fortitude you have to take on a job where, sometimes where everybody else is running the other way because of the risk and you're running into it. So when I did join in 1994, I spent a first part of my career on the west coast of Vancouver Island. And I did everything from policing, in small towns to I policed on an island by myself for 2.5 years with nobody else there. Yeah. I've worked homicide, like in homicide units, drug sections, sex assaults, you name it. I've been very lucky with the experiences that I have had. And then when I did come to Ontario in 2008, I went right into drug section and organized crime, as well as national security. And I just found each time, with each change, as scary as it was about the hardest challenges that I faced ended up being the most rewarding for me. And sometimes that means going into a space where you aren't the expert, you don't know, and you have to learn along the way. And for myself, this has sort of been the way that I do things. I jump in, I'm a voracious reader, I love to learn. And even now at my level, at the inspector and as a commander, it was when I was first introduced to cybercrime, it was something that it blew me away. It was something that was not like any other policing that I had done. And so rather than being, the inspector coming in and knowing everything and everyone coming to me, I found I was in a position where I wanted to learn from my team and the amazing expertise that they have. And for me, that was the most rewarding part of all, because I grew as a person and I grew in a way that I would never have expected to grow. I mean, you give me a major drug investigation, a homicide, organized crime, national security, I'm good. I can tell you what you need to do, and regardless of the changes. And I think what I love the most about this mandate is that it's never the same thing twice. And, my team could go out and do another NetWalker file or another iSpoof, but we aren't going to be doing that. We're going to do something different every single time. And so I get a chance to learn and be that curious, nosy. I just need to know why this happens like this, right along with my team.
That's really fantastic. And I really admire you. I remember that we were on one of the events, and one of your team was actually presenting, and he was talking nonstop about you and how amazing you are as a leader, as someone who is leading the team and empowering all of the team members, to level themselves up. And at that time, I knew that you are someone special, and I just said that I need to talk to her. I really need to, invite her to our conference. And I think that, that was just a few days before our conference, a few weeks before our conference. And it was such a delight to have you on our conference on the stage, and you kind of like blew everyone's mind. And we were so delighted, to have you at that time.
Thank you. Thank you. It was actually a joy to be around people with that same energy. And I very much believe in, you walk into a space and you feel just the excitement or the willingness to share and that collaboration, and how everybody has a genuine need to make things better. It's like you're driven to do it. And so it was, honestly, the pleasure was all mine to be included in that space. So thank you for that.
Of course, anytime. Lina, you mentioned that you have been, from the time that you even, wanted to consider to come and join RCMP, you knew that you're going to enter a very male-dominated, kind of environment. And definitely it would have been a lot of challenges for it. How did you make yourself kind of, differentiate yourself and try to become someone who would be comfortable in a male-dominated, kind of environment?
So ironically, before I joined the RCMP, I knew it was going to be a challenge. I mean, we're the federal police, and I'd admired, the organization from afar as a young girl. But so I had gone to the military reserves as a part-time while I was at school and asked for, and my exact words were, I don't know, give me something hard. And they said, okay, here's the infantry, because I believe women had only been allowed in combat roles for a few years before that. I mean, we're talking 1991, 92. And they said, you can go into the infantry. And I remember at the time, the only women that were at the unit, and there was only, 2 or 3 out of the entire, regiment that were women, but I was the only one that went into the infantry. The others had gone into medic, to be a medic or like an admin. And so I learned very, very quickly that as a woman in a male-dominated space, I had to do twice as much to earn half the respect. Whereas I learned that men in general, you're accepted for what is believed you're going to bring to the table. But as a woman, I had to show it. And even then, it was a fight. And it was a tough lesson to learn, because I found that I had to do more than everybody to have my voice heard. And those lessons that I learned have carried through. So when I did join the RCMP and I went to my first posting, I remember being a 2-year constable, which at that time is very young, very junior, and they had a call out for a plainclothes section, and I applied. But it also meant that during that time, I had given up so much of my own personal time to be able to put in the extra work to be recognized. And even then, there were people that took offense to that, because, you're so young, you're so junior, why should you be given the opportunities? But it's also about that willingness to work hard regardless. And my work ethic is, I wouldn't say I'm a demanding boss, but my expectations are high, because I put those expectations, the most on myself. And so I'm constantly looking at, what can I do? How can I elevate something? How can I do something? I mean, and I joke around, I travel on holidays, and, sometimes I have my laptop and I do work and I cheat on my family before they all wake up. And then I put it away because my time with my family is sacred to me. But it also means that oftentimes, and I'm not saying that it's right, but sometimes what that means is the person that you short the most is yourself, because you go over and above so much to make sure that you're heard, that you do inadvertently take away from yourself and your own well-being. And so I'm a huge proponent of self-care, and I have learned to I want to say slow down a little bit, because that would be a lie, but I have learned how to manage it a lot better. And I am adamant that my team take the time they need, because I know how hard they work and I see how hard they work. And there is no reason for anyone to push that hard to be heard, when you just need leadership to recognize what your people can do.
That's really fantastic. I love that, you're giving them, you're leading them by example. And I feel that, like you as someone who prioritizing self-care for yourself, and then kind of they would learn from you, how to take care of themselves as well. And if you are a woman and you're listening to them, they would have much easier job than anyone else, because you have gone through so many times to present yourself, to say that I need to be heard. But now it's kind of be much easier for them. Don't you agree?
Yes, but it's funny, because I look at the lessons of leadership that I have learned over the last, and it goes beyond the RCMP, even in the military. The best lessons that I have learned about leadership have been from poor leaders. And, we've all had them. And those are the leaders that don't inspire you to follow them. They're the leaders that remind you what you will never do to someone else. And that becomes the priority. And so I do lead by example. I will often go into the office wearing my gym clothes, and it makes it okay for them to go and take that break, to go have a workout, go for a run, go for a walk. I come into my gym clothes with my hair all crazy, and I get my workout in, and then I have my day set, because for me, that is how I am comfortable starting my day. It gets my mind going. It allows me to plan out what I want to do, what I need to get done, how I prioritize. And I find that in doing that, I am giving permission for them to do the same. And I love that, because you look around and there's times where at the end of the day and past shift, I'm having to go around and tell people, okay, you're done, go home, take a break, take some downtime, take the time that you need to recover. Because my job is not to tell them how to do their job. And I think this is where a lot of leaders get it wrong. My job is not to tell them how to do their job, or what to do and when to do, and to micromanage. My job, as I see it as a leader, is to help them get what they need. Do you need more training? Do you need more time? Do you want to sit down and talk about it? Show me what you do in a day-to-day. What would you change here? And what happens by doing that is you're giving them the opportunity to be a part of what we do, instead of it trickling down all the time. And I don't care if you've just joined the unit at 6 months service, or you've been around for 30 years. Everybody brings something different to the table based on their experience. And that's the value, is just the diversity of thought and bringing people's ideas together. So when I allow them to decide what they want to do and what their aspirations are, and I provide them things like training and the time to do it, you end up with a team that is hitting it out of the park every time. Like, I've never seen a team that just takes on so many roles. Nobody, blinks. Everybody helps everybody else, because at the end of the day, they all take care of each other. And my job is to make sure that they all have what they need to do that.
I love what I'm hearing, and I wish there was a role available, so that a lot of people who are listening to, they can apply to be in your team, and it's such a great. I love hearing these um, specific things that you know are saying in terms of being a leader, being compassionate, being able you know to listen to your team. What do they need? What can you do for them? This is such a
Yeah.
breath of fresh air, and I love that you know you are doing that. They are so lucky to have you, Lina.
Well, I'm like, honestly, thank you, but I'm lucky to have them because they all they all feel it. And I mean, when you look at our team and what we have achieved in our stats, we rival teams 10 times our size in productivity, in mandate, in investigations, in just in a lot of ways. But I will also say what that also does, and what is one of those things you can't prescribe it, you can't force it, is things like morale and team cohesiveness. And the value of that is, you cannot overstate it, because you know, one of my things when I first got there 3.5 years ago was, you know, what do you do together? And you know, everybody was, it was a work environment, but how do you care for each other? So I look at things like our Christmas parties, our annual family barbecue, because your family needs to know, who do you work with? You know, who are these people that you talk about? I mean, you think about, honestly, Susan, how much of our day is spent with our work colleagues. And so to my family, I love that they know, you know, they know who I work with, you know, just see how great the team is and their families. And so doing things like, you know, barbecues, or, you know, lunch out, or, you know, everybody pile in the cars and we're all going out for lunch together. We do a potluck. Like, it was so funny because a couple of weeks ago I had my birthday, and I had walked in, you know, the weekend after my birthday, and I was trying to do 300 things at once. We're getting ready for this big takedown. And one of the staff said, "Oh, you need to come to the boardroom. We're meeting about the file." And I thought, oh, I can't do this. I just need a break. And I walked in, and everybody had brought something for a potluck. And we had lunch, and they sang happy birthday to myself and one of our co-op students. And like, I want to tear up when I think about, but that's the environment that leadership, that true leadership, and the willingness of your team to work together can bring, is people feel like they want to be a part of it. And nobody wants to be a part of something where you feel like you're micromanaged, or you are, you know, there's no clear expectations. So those are all, like, if I can implore anyone who, you know, maybe listening about, you know, looking at what you can do for leadership, is all those things, is to be genuine, and always ask yourself, what would I have needed if I was in those shoes? What kind of boss did I need? And be that boss.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. And you totally deserve it. And such a great team. Well done to them for appreciating you and for encouraging you to be such a leader as well. So kudos to them as well. I know that.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, they are. They absolutely are. I know that you and your team have been working so hard in terms of, you know, gathering and fighting, you know, cyber crimes. Tell us a little bit more about that, and what were some of the challenges that you have been facing over the years in terms of, you know, fighting these cyber crimes. I know that you want us, you know, to hear about, you know, like those challenges, so that, you know, we come to the awareness of it. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I would say, when you look at the types of investigations, and it's sort of the other side of that coin. So while it's great to have something new every time, and to learn along the way, it makes it a challenge, because the tools you may have used, or the processes you may have used to investigate, may not be the same for the next one. And because of that, what tools do you use? What courses do you need to have? What training? And so each time, and we all know cyber criminals are so adept at evolving, and they evolve at a pace that is so quick that those of us who have rules, which is policing and industry and everybody else, we all have constraints. We have constraints from the legislative side. We have constraints from our ability to be able to, what law is it? How do you charge someone for something like that? How do you investigate it? What tools to discover it? How did the bad guy do it, or the bad girl? The other side of it is, when those changes are happening, you would now have to get your team to understand it in order to be able to properly investigate. And so having that capability and that capacity is probably, I would say, probably one of our biggest challenges. Legislatively, some of our laws haven't kept pace. So with that, we have an amazing Attorney General's office who has a cybercrime team, but they're a small team. And if you look at how cybercrime is fast becoming the foundation to all criminality, literally. And so what ends up happening is, how do you get this huge workforce that's, somewhere like the RCMP or really any police force to evolve to be able to take this on? Because it takes a considerable amount of learning to be able to effectively investigate cybercrime. And that's just the reality of it. So, I mean, I look at myself, I was a police officer for, 27 years or 26 and a half years before I joined and took over the cybercrime team. And the learning curve was like nothing it was like drinking from a fire hose. There was so much coming at me that I would go home the first couple of months. Each day I'd go home and I'd think, what did I just learn? And then trying to figure it all out. And so imagine that on a scale where you have, investigators who may be amazing at their work doing organized crime or national security, and now have to become literally technical experts. And so that becomes a challenge. Now, I will say on our team, we're very lucky because we have an incredible team of intelligence analysts. We have our civilian investigators who have that tech capability. And they literally have all the powers of policing, like of the police investigators. They just don't have a gun and they can't arrest anyone. But they bring that tech in. But again, how do you translate what policing looks like or what you need for a proper investigation? And that all takes time. And so by the time we get to, up to speed on one thing, the threat actors have moved to something else. So we're always playing that game of catch up.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It is definitely tough, to learn everything at the same time, but, definitely having, a good team with a diverse background, it would be really beneficial, to solve all these challenges that you are facing.
Yeah, 100%. But, all you have to do is you can't give up and you can't get discouraged. You have to just keep going. And that's, at the end of the day, there's always a plan A and a plan B and a plan C. And in my case, a C and D, E, F. You can't give up. When one door closes, you move on and you try the next plan, you try the next plan, you try the next plan, because we can't afford to give up, not in this space.
Absolutely. I love that. Lina, tell us one of your success stories, one of those arrests or one of those kind of, cybercrime projects that you worked on, and it leads to major investigation and also arrest.
Yeah, we just had one at the end of last week, and this was a more than 2-year investigation that came to us from our international partners from the UK about spoofing and iSpoof. And this one, when you look at the impact on the victims, it was terrible, because you have vulnerable people, you have people who truly believe that if a number pops up on their phone and it says it's from their bank, that it's from their bank, and it's not from their bank. And the problem is people let their guard down. And because we all came from the era where when call display first happened, it was like magic. How is this? How do you know this? When none of us could not tell our parents where we actually were because they could see where we were. And so we came from that era. And then all of a sudden now our parents are seeing, this number come up and it's from their bank. And it was horrible because the impact on the victims was significant. We had nearly every bank in Canada impacted as a result of this. this investigation or these threat actors. And at the same time, we identified over 570 victims just that we had identified. And now as we're pouring through, we expect that number to rise significantly. We are certain there is way more victims than was identified. And so as this is all coming to light, and as we review all the data from our search warrants and the evidence we gather, what does that all look like? To me, it looks, even if one person tuned into the news and realized, okay, I'm not going to trust what comes up on my phone. If I have a problem with my bank, I will call my bank myself, or even better, I will go to the bank if I think that there's a problem with my accounts. If even one person did that, then I feel better about it all, because it was a pretty significant blow to a lot of victims, especially elderly ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get that. And at my age, I even got spooked by that, similar calls. And I think I was halfway through the call that I just like, this is not making any sense. And I was, going through, like the call for at least, a couple of minutes. And then it was so well done, by them. The social engineering and the script that they had, it was similar to the bank. And I was stunned after the call. Like, I just dropped the call. It's like it took me like 4 or 5 minutes, to figure that out. And I usually have to pick it up, the first minute. But it took me 4 or 5 minutes. And what is going to happen to someone who never heard about these kind of things? And that to me is like, are the victims, the victims who have to go and through these horrible things, and experience that. And I know that you're dealing with many of them on a daily basis through their heartbreaks, to, having to have difficult conversation to tell them that actually that was a spam, that was not a real call. How do you deal with those kind of conversations?
The problem is, I think there's a lot of problems, but I think for us, what was really heartbreaking was, when we were trying to do the reach outs and connect with the victims to say, hey, I think this has happened, we want to come get a statement, is that some of the victims stopped believing anything they heard, which is a double-edged sword. You want them to be, cautious, but they wouldn't even believe that we were calling them, that it was the police calling them. And we ended up in some instances having to send a uniformed police to their home to say to them, no, this is actually, the RCMP is going to give you a call, and this is why. And, you have to remember, these are victims for this investigation in particular. We had victims from, one coast to the other. And so, how do we get those statements? How do we get that information? And it is tragic when you think about it. And I mean, yes, all the banks were impacted to a certain degree, but everyone says, well, what's 60,000, what's 70,000, what's 80,000. But if you're the victim and this is represents your life savings, it is literally will feel like the end of your life. And that's the most heartbreaking part of all, is people have worked their whole lives and you're a senior citizen, and now what you thought you were going to survive on is gone. And I think that was something that impacted all of my team, all of us, a lot, because this is why we do what we do. And this is why, everyone just kept going and, just gave everything of themselves, because it wasn't right what happened. And it isn't right that people stop trusting the institutions that make Canada what we are. I mean, if you have people now that no longer trust their banks and no longer trust the government and no longer trust anyone, it starts to really erode what our way of life is all about.
Absolutely. And I believe that, from our side of the story, every time that, I talk to an AML professional, I always tell them that when you're writing your STRs, you're dealing with papers, you're dealing with information, but think about who is on the other end of this. This is the impact that we're going to make. Always think about the victims. Have them, in your heart, in your mind, whenever you're writing something. And be sensible. Give all the information as possible. as much as you can, so that could, that intelligence could help you in the law enforcement side, to get that information from what we are seeing to you so that you can act upon it.
100%. And and a lot of people will say, and I've talked to people who said, well, they tried, but they didn't get in. But it was, it was really neat because I've never heard that approach before. And I think those are the times you need to report, because if it's something new and it's an emerging trend, we may not be aware of it. And we're only aware of what we are aware of when people report it to us. So the importance of reporting, it cannot be, I can't say that, often enough. And it's your police of jurisdiction. Call them, report it. For nothing else, they're able to feed into it. If you don't want to call into the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. So, I mean, they are amazing at being able to sort of collate and assess where the trends are coming from, or what are we seeing. The other side of that is what sectors are being hit, if they're targeting a specific way, if they have a new strategy, because, they evolve. So the newest one where I've spoken to a couple of people in this space, like in this industry, who, like you, would know better and can usually pick it off from a mile away, but they're getting calls from their banks saying, we detected some anomalies with your account. We want to lock it up. We were able to stop it. Did you do these transactions? And they'll list, here's one at, Canadian Tire, here's one at blah, blah, whatever they are. And, people are panicking, thinking, holy cow, it's, they actually are trying to protect me and it is my bank. And it isn't until there's certain information that you go, okay, hold on a second. That doesn't make sense. And I've actually spoken to a number of them just in the past few weeks about this very thing. So.
Yeah, it's definitely so difficult, to find them out, because they are training themselves every day and they are like getting the best technologies, the best information. They study you in a very detailed manner. They do an OSINT, kind of, investigation on you. So imagine 100%. That, like everything that we post on social medias, everything that, we talk about, they are gathering all this information and they're using it basically to talk to you and make that connection to say that, we know you, and we are representative of your bank. So that is definitely something that a lot of awareness needs to go out of it.
Yeah, definitely. And the more we can spread that, the better. But they are going to evolve. So how do we try to get ahead of it? How do we be more proactive? Because that's something, everyone wants to be proactive, and that's very hard to do. But the whole strategy should be about trying to get ahead of it instead of always trying to play catch up and defend against it. How about we be more proactive in some of our information sharing?
Absolutely. Well, Lina, I loved our conversation and I'm really enjoying, talking to you all about it. What I would love to learn from you is that what kind of advice you can give to someone who is young, a woman who is starting their career in either law enforcement or wants to get into cybercrime and fight cybercrime. So what are your advice on someone who wants to start in this field?
Ooh, that's a great question. Okay, so my first advice is learn as much as you can and don't be afraid of learning. It doesn't matter whether you're starting out your journey or like me, I get so excited when I learn something new, and I'm the first one to run around and be like, oh, look what I just learned. I got this. Look, I just figured this out. I love that. And so never be afraid to learn and be receptive to learning. And as well, no one is ever going to be the expert. Even the areas where technically I'm considered a subject matter expert, I still learn every day. And so being open to that and alive to that, regardless of your level of leadership, is key. At the same time, and it sounds so basic, but always understand that you have a perspective that no one else will have. And it's okay to share it, but recognize that you need to believe in yourself, in the sense of, if you have something to say that is going to help bring a perspective or help bring maybe a different way to look at something and approach a problem, don't be afraid to use your voice, because you would be surprised. And this has happened to me a number of times over the last 30 years, where I'll say something, and even in those times where I get discounted and I know I'm going to get discounted, I still say it because that's who I am. But you say it, and then at the end of the day, what sometimes happens is, if no one listened to you, you end up being born correct, that you were correct in your assumption. And in doing so, you end up establishing a level of credibility. You know, for myself, I've always been the person that says, well, I always tell my leadership what they need to hear. Maybe not what they want to hear, but what they need to hear. And I don't just go to them with, problems. This is happening. This is going wrong. This is going sideways. I will tell the truth, because I am utterly incapable of not. But I will say it, but I will also bring solutions. So don't be afraid to point out if something isn't going to work, but maybe consider how you can make it work. So, if I have something and I look at it and I say, oh, I don't know that that'll work, but you might want to try this. Or, those are the types of approaches I've always used and have been very effective for me. Or at the end of the day, sometimes it comes down to understanding what is important to, your own leadership. What is it you're trying to achieve, or what story are you trying to tell? Let me help you with that. Because then what that allows is, it also allows you to say, okay, I recognize that, and I may have the solution for you, but I need to hear what is important to you. Because sometimes what's important to you at your level may not be important to someone in a different level or higher up. And so it's important to make sure that what you do bring to the table is authentic. I think lastly, be true to yourself, because at the end of the day, win or lose, you're the one that has to look in the mirror, and you're the one that has to face any decision, comment, anything you make. And for myself, my guiding light is, would my younger self be embarrassed, or would I be proud of me? And that is how I choose to live my life.
I love every single point that you mentioned. That's so inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm sure that a lot of women are gonna just listen to that and bring that to their daily routine, and get them inspired by every word that you mentioned. I love the fact that you are going back to your younger self and asking yourself if you would be okay with doing that, and that could be the guiding light of everything that we could do.
Everything.
Fantastic. Really loving that. Tell us more, Lina, how we can help and support you at the RCMP. What can our audience, whoever is listening to, can help and support you at RCMP?
Well, that's a great perspective. But if you look at what I need in my role from our private sector partners, our industry partners, our other public sector partners, it's very similar to what all law enforcement agencies need. And I would say the willingness to collaborate, the willingness to talk to us before an incident and a crisis, maybe build those relationships, because I'm very much a relationship person. I have to feel like I can talk to you. I can pick up the phone and say, hey, this is what's going on. What do you know about this? Or can you help me with this? But if you take that time to build those relationships before there's a crisis, when there is a crisis, the likelihood is there is going to be a point of contact. Like, that if something comes up, you can pick up the phone and call me. And even if I can't help you, I will know the right person to connect you, whether it's someone in Alberta, in OPP, in, Edmonton, wherever. It's that's the power of relationships. So I would say that willingness to collaborate and that willingness to learn from each other is key. So just being able to say, hey, you know what, we're seeing this as a trend. Is this something you're seeing? And if not, how do we let you know that this is something that we're coming across more and more often? And then what we're able to do is assess and put it out amongst all our law enforcement partners and say, hey, all, this is what we're seeing. This is what we've been told. Are you seeing this? If so, maybe reach out and connect. Because this, I will say, this cybercrime community, or like those combating it, whether it's law enforcement or private industry, everybody wants it to work, and everybody has a vested interest in working together. And it is some of the best relationships that I have seen. And so how do we make that work, and how do we work better together? And I would say that's probably the best thing we can do. And that helps you, but it also helps us. And it's huge in that.
Absolutely. I think collaboration is very key in both public and private sector. Just to listen to each other. And I feel that, like having the ability to share information and finding solution to the problems that each one are facing, and sitting down and understanding different perspectives is really key.
100%. 100%.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lina, for your time. Really appreciate that you're on vacation and you chose to speak with us and sit down with us.
Okay.
And I really appreciate you for taking the time and being one of our amazing speaker for the International Women's Day. And we love celebrating women like you who always inspire and empower many of us in the industry. Thank you so much for your time. It was a real pleasure speaking with you.
Thanks so much, Suzanne, and I will see you soon in Toronto.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.